Batman is a complex superhero, and his long and dark journey has been explored in so many different ways. But at the core of Batman is that symbiotic struggle with the Joker, and in Batman Arkham Origins, they get to start that very dance.
Tell me something, dear. Have you ever had a really bad day? You of all people should know. There's nothing so cruel as memory.
The game is over, Joker.
Inescapable, unrelenting.
Why do you do what you do?
This will be the fight of your life.
Because I made a promise.
Now this is what I call a party!
How many lives did you just take?
Newsflash! I'm the one who's trying to kill you! You can't even escape into madness!
It's Christmas Eve and the villain Black Mask has hired 8 assassins to try and kill the Batman. Facing off against baddies like Deathstroke, Killer Croc, and a now female Copperhead gives us and Batman a chance to get to know some of these great villains a little bit more. And I think it's safe to say Bats is in for a long night.
Origins is a prequel. Batman has only been on the job for 2 years. He's undisciplined, angry, unforgiving, and unwilling to compromise.
You want to see what 250 beats per minute feels like?
I've never seen Batman this violent before, Hex, and it was kind of confronting, and also he's always surrounded by the death of innocence, and that seems to fuel his rage. We recently spoke to Eric Holmes, creative director on the game, and he spoke about why they chose to go with a younger Batman.
Getting into the prequel territory was something that really excited us, because what we could do is, rather than telling another story of Batman, we could tell a transformative story for him, something where he really has to undergo a significant change, he really has to face a very significant enemy. Whilst it's very familiar, whilst the setting is familiar and the characters are somewhat familiar, we can refresh everyone through going through that prequel lens, because the press have never had a picture of him, and the people that do know that he's real really very much regret encountering him, because the day that he met them, that day wasn't a good day for them. Batman has not yet become the character that we know he will, but through the events of the story, he grows and he develops and he starts becoming that character.
You're outmatched by these assassins.
What?
You're not some hardened vigilante. You're a young man with a trust fund and too much anger.
This really is Gotham City at its worst, and Bats is just trying to hold it all together. The police cannot be trusted. They're just as corrupt as the criminals. You really do feel like a lone wolf most of this game, even when you're talking to Batman's most trusted friend, Alfred the Butler.
Alfred, who do you see when you look at me? The boy whose shoes you used to tie every morning? The teenager you drove to his first date?
You know, I feel like there's a lot that could have gone wrong with this game. And the first hour is very much more of the same and a little underwhelming, so I was worried. You know, it's got big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and on top of that, there's new voice actors for Batman and for the Joker, and I was very worried about that.
I think he's talking to you.
But Troy Baker, who you might know as Joel from The Last of Us, or Booker DeWitt from BioShock Infinite, does a stellar Joker.
You really don't want to know.
It's both an homage to Mark Hamill's long-running interpretation, but with Baker's own spin on it.
I've killed a lot of people.
And as much as I missed not having the master Kevin Conroy, who's voiced Batman in the last 2 games and about a billion other things, I gotta say, Roger Craig Smith nailed it. And after a while, I completely forgot that it was a whole new Batman.
Boss, where's he going?
Yeah, all my worries were cast aside. Once I'd got through that opening section and settled into the Bat groove, the game really starts to find its feet. Origin City is twice the size of Arkham City, with a bridge connecting North and South Gotham. Buildings are much taller, but it still somehow feels very similar to the tightly knit Arkham City. I did enjoy stopping the odd crime though, and there's plenty of puzzles and side missions.
Another day, another door. They're just no match for you.
Gotham just felt a bit empty to me though. I mean, I know it's Christmas Eve and everyone's meant to be home tucked up in bed, but I don't know, I was a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, I was excited to be in Gotham City finally, but it's not the Gotham City I've dreamed about exploring. It's very much a hub world between objectives. You do spend most of your time indoors though, and those missions more than make up for it, I think. You're pulled through at a solid pace through the 13 or so hour campaign, with a perfect drip feed of gadgets and abilities to complement the growing complexity of the environmental puzzles.
The core gameplay hasn't changed a great deal on the surface, but it feels a lot more refined. Batman's counters are as sophisticated as ever, and it's such a joy watching him flip about seamlessly through big fights. And it felt like there were more of those double counters where you take out 2 goons at once. I'm still wowed by how reactive those animations are, and I really like that you have so many gadgets to start with. You can go from Arkham Asylum to City to Origins without feeling like you've taken a step backwards, because it's the same gadget, just earlier tech.
Yes, this Batman is very much a work in progress, both psychologically but also in his suit construction and the Batcave. I think most of all, they've really stepped up the combat this time around. There are just so many fights. And they were much more challenging this time around, with more aggressive goons and combat variables for you to worry about on the fly. Many of them I was still thinking about hours later.
I still struggle with the controls on a few occasions in some of those fights though, Barjo.
Yeah, me too.
Especially with those quickfire gadgets. But I do think they teach you to be a better Batman in combat.
Yeah, and I think they do a better job of letting you know what's going on within a fight around you, such as the click of a gun, knowing that you need to take that out quickly, or the red counter indicator that you can't avoid. I also found myself quick-firing batarangs a lot more in combat now, which is the way it should be.
That sticky concussion grenade was a favourite of mine for delayed incapacitation of enemies in a fight. But nothing can match the carnage of the shock gloves. You can tell they thought hard about enemy combinations too. It's not just room after room of more goons. There are times when you'll wonder, how will I ever get through this?
You're a dead man!
It's balanced combat. You feel awesome as Batman, but never overpowered.
The boss fights were a bit of a mixed bag though. Bane's stuff was incredible. But then others, like the one with Firefly, didn't really play to the strengths of the game, I thought.
There's more of a focus on detective work too.
This bullet was fired from a revolver. Ballistics analysis indicates a low angle of trajectory. The shooter could have been someone of Penguin's height.
You'll reconstruct a scene and try to figure out what's happened. It only occurs a handful of times in the main story, but it's a fun storytelling mechanic, and I hope future games explore this detective side of Bats a little bit more.
Yeah, me too. It must be hard to balance action with puzzles and things like that in a game like this. But it's a good mix. There were a few confusing level design issues though, and I did get a bit sick of going into Detective Vision so much, and I think maybe slightly more obvious level design cues might be a better way for the series to go. But I like that you're not always presented with the answer, and you do have to look around a bit. I thought the shadowing and colour palette was really interesting.
Yeah, I think the dark parts were even darker than Arkham City, if that's even possible. But it means you notice it more when they work colour in there, which is nice. I think what I like most about this game, though, is how everyone underestimates each other. Some fear Batman, some haven't heard of him.
What are you?
Some know him well,
Saying you, Batman.
and Bats underestimates who he's going up against constantly.
What did you do to me?
You know, and it's just fun watching all of that play out.
For me, this was all about the Joker. There are some truly incredible moments with him as a young, fresh, and completely insane villain. And Origins has some of the best cutscenes I've seen in a long time. Also new to the franchise is multiplayer. It's Joker's gang versus Bane's gang versus the dynamic duo Batman and Robin. A 3 versus 3 versus 2 matchup brought to us by developer Splash Damage, who are known for the Enemy Territory series. It's a dark game mode, but it needs to be because when you're playing as Batman or Robin, you need to rely on the shadows to survive and pick your targets carefully.
Yeah, you can always tell a newcomer Batman or Robin because they just walk into a fight.
Robin's sight.
It's quite terrifying though, seeing Batman creeping about and hearing the flap of the cape.
Yeah, I've never quite felt the fear of being a goon before quite like this. There's unlocks and gadgets and many takedown strategies to play with on all sides. I liked it, Hex. It's not something I'll come back to a lot, but at least it's not tacked on. It feels balanced and thought out.
All in all, Origins does play it pretty safe on the single-player side of things, but there's no series exhaustion here, and I think they've done a fantastic job of dealing with the important Batman subject matter. You know, it's great to be back doing that signature Batman strut, so I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10.
I think for me, I finally enjoy this combat fully. I've always been a little bit on the fence with something so counter-heavy. I just wish there were more superhero games with this level of polish and commitment, and I'm so happy that this isn't a stopgap or a filler game. It's a Batman chapter in its own right. I'm giving it 9.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.